that's the masterclass that I have been told to take, right? So before I get on to it, I'm certainly not in Korea, so I need to say hello and namaste. Is that what you want to learn? How do I reflect an audience in content? No, right? So I'm going to twist this topic slightly. These are table stakes for any marketer, any branding, communications, marketing student. These are table stakes that is a must for any marketing communication framework to work, right? You need to have a core product or an offering or a service or your purpose or promise. That's the core of every strategy. Obviously, once you have that, you have to be clear on what objective you want to drive. Okay, you can't just get on one day and say, you know what, my purpose is A, tomorrow it will be B, day after tomorrow it will be C. You have to be clear and consistent both about what you're driving and how you're going to drive. I'm not going to take a masterclass on aesthetics, right? I'm not going to tell you visualization should be this, image should be this, language should be this. I think you all have enough references, you all go through your curriculums. There are enough examples that teach you that. I'm not going to touch upon that. And obviously, digital is no longer a conversation. We are in the digital decade. That's not up for conversation. Okay, so I'm not going to touch on these table stakes. What instead we're going to do is we are going to twist this topic and understand what we as marketers, right, what do we do day to day? It's very important, since most of you, I understand, are students. You all need to know what are we facing today and what are we going to face tomorrow, because these are the skills that you need to imbibe. And what impact does it have on audience and thereby the influence on the content that you generate? Yeah, so that's the gist of the masterclass. I'm open to it being interactive. If you all have any questions, glad to answer it. If I can't answer it, we marketers have learned to admit that we don't know the answer. So we'll tell you that we'll come back to you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, but just be patient. We get a lot of requests, so there may be a delay in responding. The first perspective that we bring, right? We bring the perspective that our world is continuously changing. There are certain words that are getting emphasized. It's continuously changing and it's disruptive, right? But it's nothing new. We've always dealt with change, right? We've always figured out what is the next change, what is the next trend, what is the next innovation, what is the next behavior. As marketers, we've always dealt with this. We've researched about it. We've figured out, okay, what do we do next? The shift in perspective doesn't lie in continuously changing. It lies in evolving and it being disruptive. I'll take the first point, which is market, and I'll show you what disruptive and evolution means in each of these buckets, right? When you get into the marketing, advertising, research side of things, you pretty much have general stats, right? You know what the population is, what the penetration of your category is, what the stats in terms of your target audience is, split is, where do they reside, blah, 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 blah. What is your media consumption habit? This forms your basis of sizing your market, right? And then you basically get down to your category, your competition, your consumer. We did the same. We launched 2 years back. We are the youngest setup under the Godrej Group. It's their first foray into the financial services. In fact, we are one of the largest groups and the latest entrants, or the last, more or less the largest group to late enter into the financial services space. Everybody questioned us. Any press conference we did, any conversation we did, everybody questioned, but itna competition hai, itna clutter hai. There are big banks, there are so many things that are happening. But if you look at the sizing of the market, we are nowhere close. We are nowhere close to where the developed nations are. We are nowhere close to what South Asian and Asian nations are, right? So there's ample headroom for growth. We sized the market, we decided the timing was right, and we moved about it. And this still pretty much happens across all marketing functions, right? You size your opportunity up. However, what we are cognizant of now is, where would the disruption come from? Typically, you would have assumed within your category, some competition would disrupt you, right? A challenger brand would come, or some similar ancillary competing brand would decide an extension into your category. That's pretty much classically how your market used to be disruptive. Not anymore. Anybody can disrupt any aspect of your business, from a consumer point of view, business point of view, and your entire model point of view. Yeah? I'll give you an example of the automotive industry. A decade back, automotive majors would not have thought radio hailing cabs would be a threat, right? Nobody would have thought about this. Radio hailing cabs suddenly became a threat to automotive majors. They started impacting behavior. They started impacting your market. Slowly, now, it's becoming a category in itself where you have multiple players now coming in, right? New mobility structures are coming in. Transit structures are coming in. Same can happen to financial services. So we at Godrej Capital keep a close track of what's happening in the fintech space because we don't know what's going to disrupt us. Payments being one example of it, right? We don't know what's going to disrupt us. And that's what we're dealing with on the marketing side of things. Similarly, when we decide the purchase funnels, right? We decide the typical funnels. We started from a brick and mortar, phygital, whatever you want to call it, right? Hybrid. We decide where we want to basically be seen, be bought, be transacted with. However, you now have to be cognizant that you may be creating a completely different kind of a supply chain ecosystem. This was an announcement made by WhatsApp just last week, right? Where they're piloting browsing by category on the WhatsApp. It's, I think, piloted at Brazil and some of the other countries. Where we are on WhatsApp, we are trying to figure out if we can use it for customer transacting information, right? And customer care. Look at how the world is going to change. This will hit India soon. So I, at marketing, have to be cognizant of it and think about ensuring that whatever I do also accommodate these trends in the future, right? So keep your eyes and ears open. Disruption can come from anywhere. Next aspect, consumers. Everybody knows this. You guys know this, right? You all have more access, you all are more aware, you all are more conscious, you all are more sensitive, and you all are more demanding, and you all don't shy away from responding, right? So there's nothing new there. We've always tracked consumers, we've tracked the behavior of consumers and mindset of consumers. So what's changing, right? What do marketers basically feel is changing in this consumer landscape? If you can play the video out, please. This is a dated video, okay? This is a video which is available and it's dated.
If you were in marketing, you better start upping your game.
Because you haven't seen anything like us yet.
In just 10 years from now, we'll be buying and influencing buying
In ways that will confound you.
We won't just watch your ads. We'll expect smart, tailored content based on our social graphs.
Tailored for me.
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 And me.
We want to interact with it as we watch it. Not just with touch,
But with voice, with gesture.
With intent. You better embed everything that is featured with additional information, social APIs, and e-commerce functionality.
And we mean everything.
everything.
Everything. The car,
The skirt.
the hotel,
The app.
Because we expect to double tap on anything to get more information.
Don't worry. You'll offset the cost by on-selling any leads to those data aggregator type companies.
We'll spread it through our networks and co-create with you.
And when we do buy, there are normally more of us than there are of you. We can change your business
In one trade.
as long as the deal is on.
Augmented reality.
Will be the new reality.
AR apps will almost function like special skills to help us navigate reality more effectively.
You wait and see what the iPhone of 2021 looks like. The clue is in the name.
And you better get used to paying us.
Our browsing, influencing, and purchasing data.
We'll make some of us pretty rich.
But don't overstep the mark, otherwise we'll block you.
Mass blocks kill brands overnight and keep you up all night. So if you work in marketing,
You better start upping your game. Because you haven't seen anything like us yet.
Interesting, right? So this is a dated video. So if you listen to the video, it's talking about iPhone 2021, right? It's a far back video. But I love this video and I use it in training new joinees who join our company, is because it underlays the tones that we were anyways dealing with. We all marketeers knew that we've passed the television decade and we are in the digital decade, right? So we were dealing with these issues anyways. We were dealing with how do we basically understand the digital consumer per se. So there's nothing new here. The newness is in the word decade. We expected we had a decade to deal with it, right? By the time these behaviors set in, there was a time that it will hit us and we had time to prepare for it. Come COVID, come post-COVID, we don't have time. It's here. And it's here not just across critical functions, it's here across the board. And that's what we're dealing with. So when we want to reflect audiences across content and web, these changes you need to be aware of, right? Because these are the points that get reflected at the end of the day in what you send out back to the market. I'll give you one example. So when we launched, we call ourselves the COVID baby because we launched just after the first wave of COVID subsided. When we launched, our whole idea was we address the real estate demand coming out of Godrej properties. So we had a full fleet on street model saying that we'll have a sales guy in each of these Godrej properties offices, and the sales guys will pitch to customers who are walking in. Come COVID, there are no walk-ins happening. If there are no walk-ins happening, you're a new entrant, they don't even know you exist. What do you do? Yeah? So we ran an entire virtual campaign around creating awareness for Godrej Properties customers. Okay, then we started getting customers. Once we got customers, how do you basically, if anybody's taken a loan or if you've got your parents who've taken the loan, it's a very, very heavily KYC oriented process, right? There's a lot of documentation involved. Some part of it is digitized, KYCs are digitized, but from sanction to disbursement, it's still not digitized, right? It's not. Customers are unwilling to take the loan, and we make money when customers actually take loans, right? And actually, we start disbursing. How do you basically then address this situation? We had to reinvent the way we basically address the customer needs, and we introduced what we called the zero-touch loans, right? Zero-touch loans is the entire process done digitally where you don't even meet the customer once. That's what the consumer demand at that point in time was. We didn't have 3 years, 4 years, 6 months to study. Okay, let's figure out what the consumer wants and let's do the research and let's figure out what infra we want and all. We had to reinvent on the go because the reality of things was coming back to us in real time. Yeah, so that's what's changing on the consumer side of things. The third large perspective is on the channels and touch points, right? We've always had channels and touch points. I'm sure you all are advertising brand students. You all have always dealt with what channels and touch points are. Only difference is where perhaps you had 100 channels, you now have 1,000 channels, right? You've always had touch points to deal with. You would prioritize basis what resources, budget, objective is available or you want to deliver, and you do your entire marketing mix around it. However, the perspective that we now deal with is not on the channels and touch point side. It's that they are all connected, right? That's the perspective that we have to deal with. So this is just one example of an interaction between an internal communication channel between an organization and a customer. We end up doing all of this, and if you think we're not doing that, it's not truth. We are doing all of this. So if you put out a communication, we ensure, like for example, if you know loan rates are rising, right? And by mandate, we have to communicate that to the customer. If you're communicating that to the customer, we better ensure that we're communicating across all touch points. If you miss one touch point, I'll give you a live example. We ended up basically communicating a rate change. We did all the touch points. For some reason, our IT team decided to go under migration, and there was a glitch in real-time updation of the rate of interest on our website. Would you expect a customer to call you? Because we've communicated, right? We've sent an email, we've sent an SMS, we've sent a WhatsApp, a contact center has called for any queries if it's a large jump. You don't expect. We still got calls. We got 2 calls. You know what? I checked your website. It's still reflecting this. So you have to be cognizant of the fact that all touch points are connected. Hence, your content has to be connected, yeah, and seamless. Most important, as a marketer now, if you think marketing is equal to advertising, it's not, yeah? You have to plan for journeys and swim lanes within that journey. Now, what does a journey mean, right? It basically means that if I see your communication somewhere, what CTA do you put on it? How do I basically interact with that call to action? How do I basically then get feedback back from you in a certain reasonable amount of time, which we call TAT? How do you turn things around for me, right? And across channels. It's never a linear line. It's not as simple, ad dekha, call kiya, acha samajh mein aaya product, call rakh diya. It's no longer linear, right? We literally have to break down journeys. Okay, if the person comes to us through WhatsApp, or if he comes to us, or he or she comes to us from SMS, what is the sequential progression thereof? And it doesn't just rest there. It's not just about securing that customer. What happens after you've brought that customer on board, right? How does that entire funnel now look like? And marketing is part of that entire funnel discussion. A simple conversation now looks complicated. What should I put on my letter to the customer? Should I address them on first name? Should I address them as he, she, Mr., hello? What do I write? Right? Everything now becomes that much more robust. And if you end up automating it, there are dangers which you have to be aware of so that you build in your funnel journeys, right? So these are the things that we as marketers now deal with. It's not as simple as equal to advertising. And the core of it. So I had a person who had recruited in my team in my previous stint who said, "Meko ye samajh mein nahi aata hai. I love creatives. I am a creative person." Great. But if you're in marketing and if you want to grow your career in marketing, this is something that you have to live, learn, and evolve with. Okay, there are no two ways about it. The core of any marketing strategy lies in this. You have to know what infra is required. What are the sources of information that the customers reach out to you, interact with you? You have to know, differentiate between information and data, right? You have to move a step forward on how do I basically create usable insights out of it and then effectively or intelligently deploy it, right? You will be dealing with this, so you better understand this. It doesn't mean that you have to do a PhD around it. You have to understand it so that you know what needs to go. A simple ad, right? If you put a simple Facebook lead form ad out, it requires an API integration. If you don't know what an API integration means, how will you have that conversation? How will you know how that journey works, right? So ensure your understanding is good. And more with how the future is coming around, with privacy being primary concern for most consumers as well as brands thereof, with first-party data coming in and all the sorts of terminologies around it, data becomes the core. And the infrastructure discussion around it hence becomes important to understand. So up your game to understand these terminologies. Go beyond creatives. What it enables us to do, right? So my first job was with Group M. I was a media planner handling, in fact, some of the leading brands. We used to have enough decisioning tools, right? We used to say, okay, this channel program works, this print has the largest readership, these are the pockets where you'll have traffic junctions movement on a higher side. And we used to optimize the plan. We used to make decisions basis that. However, what we now do on the marketing side is we have more flexibility and validated flexibility, right? We can actually see what's happening in real time and take calls. I'll give you an example. I'm running a campaign on one of the publishers where I'm not getting quality data in. I'm just not getting quality data in and quality leads in. I can take a call to stop it right now. Versus, oh, you know what? The beta has gone to the television channel, it will take me 24 hours to stop it because it's already programmed, right? So that decisioning flexibility, coupled with the insights that you're getting live, enables you to optimize the resources better. So when I joined Godrej, my first line, my CEO told me, Shonali, you're going to get zero budget. Okay, so when you get conversations like this, when you get into a job, these are the conversations. If you're on the agency side also, the client will always tell you there's no budget, right? This enables you to optimize the resources that you have in a better way. And obviously, we pride ourselves on being customer obsessed, right, across the group and especially at Godrej Capital. It sets up the entire play for us to become slightly more customer tuned, okay, to what's happening real time. So that's why it's very important to understand what's happening around you, because that's what you're going to reflect. When you say reflect, this is what you're going to reflect, yeah? I'm not getting into this, I presume, because most of you all are students, so I'm going to leave this conversation, but it basically helps you plan better, right? And save whatever money you can. Because of all the perspectives that are happening across market, consumer, channel touchpoints, and the data infra side of things, the way hence we define audiences also is slightly changing. We've always had personas, right? We've always had a persona of a consumer or multiple personas of the consumers. We used to prioritize, okay, this is our primary TG, this is a secondary TG, blah, blah, blah. So we've always done that. So the perspective or the shift that is happening is we obviously know now much more about these personas. That's the only shift that is happening, that you know much more about these personas, and hence you can create or curate content accordingly. I'll take you through two examples. This, if you can play the video. This was a campaign that I was part of when I was working with Reliance. So at Reliance, we were switching from CDMA and entering into the GSM spectrum, right? We had two established players at that time. Reliance pretty much was known for its network quality in that era, if anybody is from that era, was known for its network quality and was known as a value conscious brand, right? So we played up with it, and that's why if you look at the theme of the entire campaign that we ran, it was around those network bars, right? We had Hrithik Roshan as a brand ambassador, so if you notice how the children and Hrithik is also stacked, everything that we did had that network bar connotation, right? Because we wanted to harp on it and we wanted to milk it the every way possible. So we did it. So that's how you segment audiences, right? You segmented audiences basis their demographics and psychographics. You knew which geographies you wanted to go. We wanted to do it at a scale level. We knew what behavior we wanted to target. Okay, we had all that information. In fact, we were one of the first to enter digital also. That was the innovation done by Vishal Chinchankar and team. Vishal now leads Madison. He's a CEO at Madison. This was the first, we won an MV also for this, where we had a direct call in, right? You get a message from Hrithik, a web call saying, hi, this is Hrithik Roshan, and it connected two people. You had to feed in whomever you want the call to go to, and the call would connect you and the other person. So we always did audience segmentation. The difference lies from demographic, psychographic layering, we've moved much forward, right? I'll give you a case of Yummies. Yummies is a sister company brand, okay? They have just launched a product called Potato Stars. Yummies now defines its entire ecosystem to rely on frozen food products with no added preservatives. That's the space they want to occupy, right? So they know that they're talking to modern consumers, they're talking to people who are conscious about food choices, but still have impulse snacking habits, right? What they have basically done is they have researched the entire consumer world and have come forward with an acronym called STEM. Safety, Taste, Technology, Ease, Mood Lifters. The current campaign that they have launched Okay, it's all about using technology and uplifting fun. Potato Stars is supposed to be a fun product, right? So the whole communication teases around this. However, going forward, they're going to break down the cohorts of the consumers basis those 5 things that I've told you, right? They will talk about safety and create a cohort of consumers who basically prioritize safety. They will talk about ease, prioritize cohorts who value ease, mothers, right? They will talk about mood upliftment and create cohorts of consumers and content around that. So it's easier for us now to understand this and not end up spending so much on research, because we get this through listening, we get this through multiple data points that we track on what's basically trending, yeah? So if you've understood what's happening on the external side of things, on what's happening on the marketing spectrum, if you've understood what's happening on the audience side of things, content hence now needs to address all of these, right? And it has to address them 24/7. If you notice, at least people in the leadership level, you'll always find my phone next to me. I don't know why, but something or the other keeps happening always on a weekend for me, right? So you'll always find us 24/7 live because your consumer is live, right? And if you're not addressing an issue in proper time, it becomes a larger issue. So content now needs to be addressing 24/7 marketing ecosystems. That doesn't mean that you need people working 24/7, right? There are enough data infrastructure available, content management suites available, and other tools available which enables you to do this, right? So you decide. Remember the first slide, the table stakes that I put up? Yeah? You decide what your content strategy has to be. When I say you decide, that doesn't mean that you get up from your sleep and decide. You take all the inputs that have been laid out earlier and decide. Do you want to be a storyteller? Or you want to address the goldfish memory? Or do you want to basically make content which is interactive? Or you want to make it immersive? Or you basically want to make it consistent? Or you want to make it adaptive? It's a choice that you make, and it's not a choice that you can't change, yeah? You make a choice and then you change it. Basis what data comes back to you on what's working, what's not working, and what's impacting your P&L at the end of the day. And sometimes just the classical approach works, right? So Goodnight is another brand of our group. Pretty much the market leader. It's very clear right now on what cohort it's trying to address. It's basically the young mothers who value protection and care. Very clear on what the communication strategy is. And the objective is clear. On digital or on web, I will use an informative and educative route. I will ensure my product is available wherever the consumers are shopping for it. But my go-to strategy will still remain scale at a mass reach level. So they have on all other communication assets an adaptive route. They take communication and adapt it by platforms, and it works. If you could play the video, please. This is their latest video.
मैं ले लूं तेरे आँखों के रत जगे नींदों को तेरी नजर ना लगे
मच्छर भगाए बिना धुआं फैलाए ताकि नींदों को नजर ना लगे गुड नाइट लिक्विड
You saw their positioning clearly coming through in the communication, and if you look at their web content, it's very educative. It's all about what the care you need to take during monsoons. Okay, so what are the tips during monsoons, blah, blah, blah. What should young mothers look for in terms of bringing up their child in a mosquito-free environment? And the last point, hence, remember to upskill. It's while you do your branding and marketing courses, remember to upskill continuously. I just did a course 2 years back. I'm doing a course in another 2 months, right? Remember to upskill, because that's what is important for you to stay relevant, right? It doesn't mean that you have to do a course every time. You can pick up any learning tool and do it. Secondary research, anything, right? Because you are expected to do these roles. As I said, you don't need to have PhDs to do these roles, but you need to understand what's happening in each of these spaces, because that's what a marketer is expected to do these days. Slightly cliched, but works. Everything changing, don't let this change. Sometimes it's all about just that idea and content and your sixth sense, which could come with experience, which could just come with your conviction, right? Sometimes an idea is just worth backing up. Back it up, yeah? I'll give you my personal example. So as I said, we launched during COVID and we had to create internal buzz, right? We had to create noise saying that, okay, we exist with no mass media budgets or even digital budgets thereof. So how do we do that? We could have sent an emailer as a corpcom mailer and say, hey, you know what, we've launched. We are one of your group companies and we've launched. We didn't want to do that, right? We decided to basically use Twitter and get all our brands on board. I got rejected on this idea twice. I got rejected saying that Twitter banter will not work. It works if a Netflix and a Zomato talk to each other. It will not work with internal Godrej group brands talk to each other. It comes across too blunted, right? I got rejected again. You know what? It's just cumbersome for all brand managers to come together and just get this executed in that half an hour's time. We stuck to it. Madison was my agency. We stuck to it. We scripted it. We showed all the brand managers, you know what? It's worth doing it. They loved the script. They loved the script. Everybody came on board and we got so much of appreciation across the board on this. It's a simple idea. It was meant for internal audiences and leveraging social followership of our internal group brands, and it worked. So you have a Godrej Properties joining in the party, because we were called the new kids in the block, so the party idea came from that, saying welcome aboard while you finance, we build homes. Every brand started getting their positioning in, right? So sometimes just back up your content, yeah? That's it from me. I'm not sure what the format is, but I'm open to questions, if any, or you can connect with me later. Okay. Yeah, hi. I can.
Hello. Yeah, hello ma'am. Firstly, thank you for the wonderful session. Got to learn a lot. Want to ask, what role does data play in offering more personalized experiences as far as the marketing offerings and your communications concerned?
So I'll give you a funny anecdote, right? So we were evaluating one of the tools which would help you personalize content, right? And we had to present the entire tool to our CEO. So he comes in and he says, you know what, if you're going to tell me that you're going to say hi, hello, good afternoon, good morning, and change the colors from blue, green, and red, let's not have this conversation. Personalization, unfortunately, has been reduced to creative executions. Understanding of it has been reduced to creative executions. It's not so. There are so many brands and so many companies who are doing such a fab job out of it. All of us are learning as we go, right? So coming from a banking, financial services point of view, we are looking at personalization from creating cohorts where we can basically upsell or cross-sell products, right? So we have a lot of first-party data with us. We have your income history. We know what you're doing. So pretty much we're trying to create like your pre-approved loans, right? Currently it's still at a very mass level. We at Godrej Capital are figuring out how to basically get personalization in to create product offerings which are tailored to your need or your more transacting history with us. That's how we are treating it, yeah?
All right, and where do you think, for any brand in general, where does the buck stop with personalization as far as data privacy is concerned?
I don't think so anybody has an answer for that. All of us are waiting and watching. The buck doesn't stop, right? It's up to you. We follow a thumb rule. We follow a thumb rule which is our internal mantra, which is saying, do right by the customer, right? So that's where the buck stops. If you have that philosophy to do right by the customer, your buck stops there.
Glad to hear that. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so very much, ma'am. Can we hear it once again from Ms. Shetty, please?